Welcome to this week's episode of the Multipliers Club podcast, where we're thrilled to host Meeta Sahni, celebrated as the Businesswoman of the Year in 2021. Meeta brings to the table a wealth of experience in recruiting elite talent for various businesses, as well as providing invaluable guidance to business owners who are contemplating selling their companies or transitioning away from active management. Whether you're considering such a move now or in the future, this episode is a must listen. So we're here today on the Multipliers Club. Jake's away. Sam is also away, but I've got a very special guest, Meeta.
Hi, Luke.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Meeta.
Hi, Joe.
We've actually been talking a while about getting you on.
Yeah.
So I know you've been doing some work with Joe.
Yeah.
We saw you at Founders.
Yeah, so do you want to just tell the listeners, there's two sides to your business. Obviously, I've actually used you for both of those.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the listeners what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the CEO and founder of the Maine Group. We're a talent consultancy, and we help businesses go on their journey, from founding to from concept right through to getting the right people, the right processes, and ultimately for business owners and business leaders, making themselves obsolete in their business so that they can have the opportunity to create an event, whether that's a management buyout, whether that's private equity investment or selling, because I think so many people start businesses, but they don't actually think, where's it going to go from there? And one of the things my mentor first taught me was whenever you're building something, think about who the audience is, who would buy this in the future. So the Maine Group supports businesses through helping them find the right talent, helping them then train and understand their talent, doing personality profiling, understanding how they learn, how they communicate, and then getting that all aligned with every layer of the business. So right from strategic through to operational, literally day to day, what people are doing, training them to do that, and then having a really good sort of overarching feedback and coaching environment so everyone feels part of something. And everyone's on a different part of that journey, so it's very interesting, and I've really enjoyed doing the work with Joe and Pure Projects.
Yeah, so obviously you came in, you helped for a few months. So we did the strategic plan, or we kind of dissected the business initially, didn't we? Went through everything. Then we had the strategic plan and remapping out a full business plan in a way that was obviously new to us, which was very good, very simple to understand, like a 3-year plan. You helped obviously recruit my interior designer, who's doing very well, so that was good.
Excellent.
So that's a big part of your business, isn't it? The recruitment side.
So historically, like if we're talking like heritage, we started out by finding great CEOs, their right-hand person.
Right.
So back in the day, every director would have an assistant, PAs, EAs, whatever you want to call them now. They're called business assistants or chiefs of staff. But ultimately, I'm a real believer that a good business leader doubles their output with the right support. So if you have an assistant that essentially becomes an extension of you, then imagine if there were 2 of you, Joe, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And then from there, we started building the whole engine room of organisations. And then we realised that we weren't just building the team, we were training, we were inducting, we were advising. But then without having a direction, a lot of people wouldn't work out, right? Because it's one thing turning up, but it's another thing knowing where you're going. So I think the first thing any business owner needs to decide is where they want to be. So many of us start and just go day to day. But we know that, if you don't pinpoint where you're going to be, you're never going to get there. But if you say, right, I want to be at A, you might be at B, you might be at C, but you'll be close. Whereas if you just start out with like, I'm going to just keep going day to day, there's no chance.
I think people think they know where they're going, but they don't.
Well, thoughts are just that, right? They have no substance, they have no strength, they have no power until they're down and they're considered and they're joined up. So
That's what I was going to say. I feel like a lot of business owners do go one step further, being goal setting, but goal setting's kind of like say, you need the journey, you need the plan, you need to set the goal, but then work your way back and actually break it down step by step all the way to what's your next step. So you talk about your next step from today to get there, rather than in 3 years I want to hit 5 million. It's at least it's one step in the right direction, but it's a bit nothing really.
Well, I look at myself a bit like Siri, right, or Google Maps. You know, the voice that says, now do this, now do that. You know, I'm the recording of the voice that, you know, you've already mapped the journey. We know A, because that's where we are now. We know Z, because that's the end point, the 5 million, or whether it's an exit or whether it's whatever it is. But no one really knows the route they're going to take to get there. So we map that. So essentially, the journey we go on is mapping out from A to Z. But it starts, I mean, when Joe and I started to talk about what he wants to do with Pure Projects, we went right back to, well, why did you start the business, Joe? Like, what is it that drives you? What gets you out of bed every day? Because this journey, you know, it is full of ups and downs, right? Unpredicted circumstances. And unless you've got that real grounding of who you are, why you do what you do, and it's not usually I want to, create great homes for people to live in. It's usually, like I was saying about me, I wanted to be the master of my own destiny, and I wanted to make sure that my work experience and everyone that worked with me felt empowered rather than controlled. And so that was my story. So with Joe, like, what did you find, like, when we first started talking? What was it that you felt, this is something I want to do?
In terms of the actual business, or
like when we started talking about Pure Projects, where you are, where you want to be, like, what was the driver that made you jump on the journey of creating the map for success?
Yeah, I think obviously my reasons why from day one was all to do with trying to help my parents, really. And that's, for me, my 20s are about trying to help my parents, set them up for retirement, make sure they have a good life. And obviously, so that's why I've got the business with my mum and dad. And so that was the reason why, and that's obviously a strong reason why. And so that's what keeps you going. But obviously through the first couple of years of the business, where I had other businesses as well, and also saw far more success in the other businesses, it's hard to then stay completely focused on this business. But after all of that and selling my clothing business and stuff, then I went all in, focused on this. We saw some good success for then, like, the next year. And then obviously when I first met you, it got to a stage where I knew I needed good systems, processes, a plan in place. I needed to map out every single step. And although I had the vision, the goal, where we can get, I knew when we get to a certain size, I'll be comfortable in leading a team and building a team and so on. But it was, to be honest, it was mainly the systems and processes and the actual order in which you're meant to do certain things. I think some things is great. That's why entrepreneurs, you come up with your own way of doing things and stuff. But there is also certain stuff that it just helps if you get taught how to do it and copy what's been done before, basically. And so getting everything a bit more organised, more professional, more, that's what.
And it's getting your vision
getting my vision on paper.
People, isn't it?
That was it. Getting my vision down on paper, so and so everyone can try to understand it, rather than me just constantly talking, trying to sell the vision to people. Which everyone was on board. That's why everyone was within the company. But sometimes I'd get frustrated because I think, you don't quite get what I'm saying. So being able to then work with you, where you kind of understood what I was saying, but then somewhat like translate that to people and get that down on paper, that was really valuable.
What is the clarity, isn't it? Like you said, you have a vision, you have a plan and a thought, but where does that fit in with the rest of the journey? How do the people relate to that? How does the future, what are the finances? Like, it's all got to come together like a dance, really. Like, if this hand and this hand aren't clapping at the same time, you don't create the sound. And it's the same in an organisation, in a business. You need to hold your space. You need your other people to hold their space and stay in their lane. And it's, unless that's really clearly defined, what we're doing, why we're doing it, where that's going to get us, this is how we're going to feel when we get there, this is what it's going to mean for you, whatever that person's motivators are, because everyone's motivated by different things, people will fall off, right? They will slow down, they won't be engaged, they won't be motivated. And there's only going to be one business owner to start with, one visionary. But you can impart that vision and you can create everyone's own personal visions to go on that journey with you. So I talk a lot about, like, for me, my own journey was that when I started, I knew that I wanted to be the master of my own destiny, but I thought, you know, my father had a property portfolio. He was an engineer by day and worked in his properties by night. He was almost like that kind of, you know, the business was all him, right? So he bought the houses, did them up, blah, blah, blah. But when I started the business, I had a team, but really I had to be at touch points with everyone so that I knew what was going on. But actually, you can't grow a business past that if I need to be involved. So, but actually, when you empower each of these people, they can then empower 5 other people, and all of a sudden, your growth becomes exponential. But if you haven't got the clarity at this stage, you're never going to be able to keep that clarity when it gets bigger and bigger. So that's what our process does, essentially. It helps you to peel back the onion. And that's what I did with my organisation. I literally looked at it from, I always use my mum's cooking as an analogy. Like, she used to make the meanest chicken curry. But if I asked her what the recipe was, she couldn't tell me. Yeah. And it's a bit like that with business, right? You know, like you writing down the step-by-step ingredients of that perfect chicken curry. In business, visionaries, business leaders, they know what their vision is, but defining the step-by-step process to get there, that's not their expertise. So, and that's where they need coaches, consultants and support to give them the space to define that and see that. So.
And what's interesting is, I think you said this before we started the process as well, of the mapping out the next 3 years.
Yeah.
I think you actually said it, and you was right, is once you actually start breaking it down, getting it all on paper, by the end of the couple of days that we did that for you, all of a sudden your numbers, you start looking at it and thinking, oh, we can increase that actually. In fact, I've got complete confidence in this plan. Let's say your initial target was 5 million. So all of a sudden we was all on the same page saying, I think we can easily up that to 7 million. That seems completely achievable. And that's what it brought everyone together. Like you said, that's often the case. Once you break it down, it can be a lot simpler than you think, really.
Yeah, because it's step by step.
Yeah.
And when you're doing those really menial things, which you think, oh, I don't want to do this, or you have a member of your team that's doing that real consistent, it could be leads generation, it could be, it could be admin of other sorts. But you say, if you do this, remember, this is where it's going to get us to. They're like, oh, yeah. I am, I'm not just sweeping a stage here. I am part of, Les Miserables or whatever. People, it's how you visualize your little part of the plan to where it's going to get everyone. So, what I noticed in Joe, what I noticed in you was that you were very good at seeing where you are and where you want to be. And you talked to me a lot about, right, I've done some thinking and I've put these numbers down and I can see where that's going to get, but I've got this time drain, I've got this resistance, I've got this challenge. So we could pretty much be like spinning on the spot, using all our energy, but never getting anywhere. And when we did that strategy day, we actually spent a few weeks really understanding your why, but then also all your shareholders' whys, and understanding, is everyone aligned? Because when you have partners, it's not just your vision, it's making sure everyone's on that journey with you and being able to make sure everyone wants the same outcomes, because it takes risk, it takes effort, it takes pain before you get to the reward. So is everyone willing to be on that journey, or do they just want a day-to-day lifestyle where they're kind of switched off, turn up, do whatever, go home? Oh, look, we haven't grown. Oh.
So what would a typical scenario be for you? People come to you and say, oh, I've got my business and I want to sell it. In a couple of years or now, or
so if you think that we are helping business owners and business leaders become obsolete in their own organisation, the biggest purpose of that is to give them back their time, right? Because if they're a visionary, if they're ambitious, they're serial entrepreneurs, or they're like, yeah, I just want to sell, then how are we going to help a buyer see that they are not the business? Because they don't want to be part of the future. Yeah. So to really create an environment where a buyer looks in and says, the product, the brand, that's the business. Yes, the founder created it, but this organisation can continue to grow without them. How is someone going to do that if they're intertwined in everything, if everyone only listens to them, right? So that's what we do. We help them step out of the middle of it and really be at the bottom of a big upside down pyramid of supporting your senior leadership, who then support the team on the ground, who then support the customers, whoever your customers are. And that really is all the founder's job, is to support the structure.
I think a lot of people, when they first start their business, they say they want to automate it. But I mean, that's way easier said than done. Like, there's so many different businesses. Oh yeah, we're going to automate it. It's going to be run. It's like, it's so much harder than that. Yeah. So I guess that's your job to try and help.
Yeah, it's having that clarity and perspective. So when I talk about peeling back that onion, literally the core is your why, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what your results have been so far, what of that is where you want to be, what of that is not. And most importantly, what are you doing that is feeding your soul and adding value to the organisation versus you spending your time in areas that actually are not going to give back to the bigger picture. So I talk about, CEOs, and in this day and age, you can send emails. You can do a lot of it through tech and AI.
Yeah.
But if you've got somebody that can be out there being you while you're here being you, you're doubling your output, right? So if you've got a whole team of that, well, then the success is, exponential.
Do you have any particular success stories that?
Yeah, absolutely. So through the Founders Club, well, first of all, Joe in himself is on the Joe. We started in summer. So 6 months is pretty early on, because it's one thing having a plan. Second thing is executing it. And the third thing is life happens, right? So with all best laid plans, there's going to be factors that pull you left and right. And again, how focused and centered you are on sticking to that plan, that's the challenge. With another client, it was a family-run business. This guy took it over from his father, but the father ran it with him in the middle. And this guy said, I don't want to be in the middle of the business. I want to go and do other things. I'm just married. I want to travel. He was, under 30. But because he'd inherited such a big machine already, he knew that there was potential there. He just didn't know how to unravel himself. So for somebody like that, we went back again to, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Let's look at your team. We interviewed every member of the team. We wrote job descriptions. We looked at operations. We looked at processes. We rewrote them all. And then we made sure that nothing led back to him. It all went through a senior leadership person before it got to him, because he was literally being phoned for everything. Like, right from, initial client engagement right through to, there's a problem on the job, for example, and it's thinking about, he wanted to be out creating more relationships, improving costs of supply that he was buying, getting more partners. He actually ended up, through the process, creating the team enough that they were able to run the day-to-day. I think he said he got 40% of his time back, and he was actually able to create a new business, which was, he started to manufacture the materials that he was buying in. So he created another business, right? So straight away, that time, you can't put a price on the headspace you get from this process. But you also have to accept that you've got to get out of the weeds. Like, sometimes we are busy fools as business owners. Sometimes, especially when times are tough, we revert back, don't we, to like doing, for me, I coach my team. Where actually, what I really should be doing is getting out and doing more networking, business engagements, and going out and helping, talking to more business owners. But my go-to is, right, where are the team? What are the blocks? Let's make sure they're aligned. So I think business owners, if you have the plan, it holds us to task as much as the team. And that way you say, listen, I'm as accountable to you as you are to me. This is our plan. And that's why the strategy day is really important, because not only does it bring the founder in the room, but it brings in your key members. And it's not just you saying, this is what I want. You are able to listen to everyone. So by the end of that process, everyone feels that they've been part of that plan and that journey.
Yeah. I think even like now, it's like you said, obviously it's something that you can come straight back to. So right now, literally today and this week, leading up to Christmas, we've gave ourselves a bit of a gap, wrapping up jobs sort of thing. So for me, I thought it's back to phone calls, so calling all of the architects, all the interior designers, all of the estate agents, etc. And I thought, if we make 500 phone calls, and we don't stop until we make 500 phone calls and get through to 500 people, at the end of those 500 calls, we will have, like, the business will be completely different. I guarantee it. So now the main task for everyone in the office is we research, find the people, outreach to them, make the phone calls, every one of us, then book as many meetings as we possibly can for myself to go and meet these people. And at the end of those 500 phone calls, I think Dan Pina, you know, the guy, the billionaire guy, he's always swearing anyway, he says, like, I don't care what industry you're in, you're like 2,000 phone calls away from being a millionaire. He says, any industry, you call the right people, you make 2,000 calls, just pick up the phone, do your research, start calling. And I agree, and that's literally what I'm starting to do now. We discussed it in the strategy day about outreach to these people. They're going to keep supplying you the constant work rather than the individual jobs. So
I only want Joe out there talking to people, because when I look at you and your strength and your vision and your plan, if you as you're doing, creating the team on the ground to run the day to day, you could, you know, so easily with your passion, your expertise, your vision, go out and win more opportunities.
Yeah.
For your projects.
So that's what I'm trying to do sort of now and leading up to Christmas. And I think it will make a huge difference. It'd be good to see. It's good to do. I want to just do it in volume and numbers, and rather than making a few calls, send a few DMs when you're busy, do X, Y, Z, just hit it hard, hit the volume, and see where we're at in a couple months' time after doing that. And I think it will be a big shift. But yeah, another question I've got is, so a lot of people, I think some people will start a business and they might say, oh yeah, like, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully one day we might sell it, or I'd like to exit. They've got a magic number in their head. I want to exit for $1 million or 5 million, whatever. But what could happen? They might then actually get to the stage where they are making the profit and stuff that potentially in another circumstance they could have sold for that number. However, they get there, they come to want to sell it, and then realise the last 3 years they've not been tracking the right data, they've not been hitting certain targets, they've not done, you know, what's the sort of
metrics?
What's the metrics you need to consider now if you may want to sell your business in 3 years from now, so you don't get there and get your valuation absolutely slashed?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question, because it goes back to the point I made that was taught to me, is that when you're building your world, think about who your buyer is going to be, right? So it could be that you're looking at a private equity firm and you want them to invest in you, or you're looking at a company that you think you look at the big guys like Microsoft and Google, they're buying out these AI firms and, you know, different types of companies, and you think, right, where do I see me adding value? So first of all, it's understanding what your value proposition is, and then it's asking questions. I say, go and talk to these buyers and say, you know, this is what, because I think, you know, people are afraid to say they want to sell. They think they have to say that they're going to be attached to this forever to show passion. But actually, you know, different founders have different skill sets. Some are great at creating, most are great at creating and growing, but not running. So that's where you want to say to somebody, right, this is my plan. What would you be looking for from me? You know, go out and talk to venture capitalists, go to the talks about funding and look at what they ask for. But personally, I would start by looking at, so when we do our strategic day, we break it down into 10 different areas. So I'm going to try and reel them all off, but in general, what we, you know, first and foremost, we look at like the endpoint you want to be in terms of sales and turnover. We look at what your margin is. We look at what your team profile looks like for the people that are going to get you there. And we break it right down into role type, job description. You know, we make sure that we've got real clarity on who's going there. Then we look at your products. You know, is it one revenue stream? Are there spin-offs that can bring other opportunities? We did that really well in your world. In fact, the spin-off has actually become your main focus for now, because you've understood that it's actually going to bring faster returns. So things like that, you probably wouldn't have spent as much time on plan B if we hadn't done that strategy day to really see the power of where you spend your time and the return on your time. I think it's really important to have a good mentor who is an expert from the industry, because so many organizations and sectors have different metrics that you need to measure. But ultimately, get good finance systems used, you know, even the online apps like Xero and stuff, they measure everything. They give you management information that you would have paid, you know, £50,000 to £100,000 a year from a financial person now. They literally give you, you know, so where you're starting, what your sales are, what your margins are, what your product plan is, you know, not just we might do this, but this is what we're going to do. This is how much it costs to create. This is how much it makes us. This is what we're doing with the profit we make. We're putting it back in here. And then look at your marketing plan and literally build out your whole journey. So it's like a car. It's not just the petrol, it's the wheels, it's the water, it's all the elements that go into it. And I think for me, I would say the biggest factor is what's specific and relevant to your world. And that can only be done by understanding your business. So go to networking events, sector specialist events, get that mentor in. So many people, you don't ask, you don't get, right? LinkedIn is full of people that are at a stage, like you said, ultimately, Joe, you want to give back the understanding of all the ups and downs. If anyone can learn from that, so you would be primed to mentor somebody else down the line, right? So find somebody that understands your journey and will help you clarify what those metrics are.
Yeah, I think like that, it makes it worth it. All the losses you've been through or the challenges or the hard times, if you can then help someone else, it seems like it was worth going through that yourself. So there's so many people, most people you meet in business are willing to help, answer a few questions. The people that are fully actually in business, at least like doing business or have done well or are genuinely successful.
Because they know the pain of it.
Yeah, because exactly, they know the pain of it. And
if you can help someone just get one little thing and we always say change, like speed up your whole process of a year or two sometimes. Crazy.
It's like we were talking about roughly right is better than precisely wrong. So that was one of my that's one of my messages that I got from a mentor, and I tell myself that all the time, because sometimes you can get so caught up in perfection that you miss the opportunity. So actually get your plan, even if it's 80%, like the 80-20 rule, right? Pareto's law, similar thing.
What's it called?
Pareto's law. So that is similar to where they say that 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients.
80-20 rule is so many different.
Yeah, exactly.
It really does play out in everything.
But it does, yeah. And that's the similar thing, isn't it? Like, get your plan, don't perfect it, try it, refine it through the doing rather than the planning. And just
the 80-20 rule, there's so many different.
Exactly.
It really does play out in everything.
But it does, yeah. And that's the similar thing, isn't it? Like, get your plan, don't perfect it, try it, refine it through the doing rather than the planning, and just get on with it, because you'll learn far more by being in it. And, the other thing is, failure is the journey to success. And they all sound like cliches until you've lived it and until you realise how you pick yourself up is the biggest sign of success, not the fact that you failed. Everyone's going to make mistakes, and forgiving ourselves for those mistakes. But when you plan it, you can understand, oh, this was the mistake, not, oh my God, I've got this whole plan. Where did it go wrong? Right? So then you don't go crazy thinking about where it went wrong. You can pinpoint exactly where, okay, I won't be doing that again. And you can get back on track much quicker.
It's just about sort of getting everything down. Obviously, the first point is the plan, breaking down the plan. Within each section of the plan, kind of a new plan, like your marketing plan, your revenue plan, etc. Getting all of that documented so it's easy. Then moving forward, you basically want to be checking in on each of these things that you've documented, recording any data that you possibly can. That's what I've been saying now, is literally any data that we can record anything. Because at the time it's so easy as well. So if I have 10 things I just want to learn about every single customer, like even to who was the first, did I speak to the husband or the wife when I called? Did I mainly speak to the husband and wife when I was there through the job? Did I mainly speak to the husband or wife? Like, just these things, what age was they? Did they have kids? Did they have thingy? Just all of that, so easy to record at the time. But then in 2 years from now, if I can just go on my spreadsheet and press a few buttons, and all of a sudden I can see exactly, if I see that, how weird, when it was bathrooms, it was 90% of the wives I was speaking to. When it was the bigger extensions, it was 90% of the husbands I was speaking to. Or, you'll start seeing some patterns which you can then just, especially if you're running ads and marketing, you can then say literally double down on, just target the males for this, just target the females for this, target this age bracket for this. And that's obviously just one section, but that's what I'm saying, to just record all data. And that's essentially, I guess, in a few years' time, if you've got your plan and you're going to consistently update your plan, and then after a few years, you've now got 3 years worth of data that you've been tracking your plan, tracking your metrics, and that's what a buyer would come in and look at and see as really
absolutely.
important.
Because if you imagine, one thing is tracking, and another thing is saying, right, well, I'm putting, a lot of people call them KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And again, what's specific to your organisation, from mine to yours is different. But if you can look at 5 key performance indicators, so say for my group, the Maine Group, we look at client engagement, so how many calls, how many meetings, we look at how many jobs we take on, how much conversion we do. We look at consultancy clients, and we look at ROI. What were they making when we started with them? What were they making when we finished with them? So if you just think about, it's not just what you do, it's the rate of success from it. So how many roles does my company... So I was talking to a client yesterday, and they are a training company, and we've helped them hire people to... They've split off their trainers from delivering and nurturing relationships to half and half. So we've helped them bring their business development team in. But they were saying that when they were letting the trainers do it all, of all the interest that came in, of all the inquiries, they only converted 10%. But when they brought a separate business development team in, they converted 22%. So they've just gone to 120% improvement on their business without actually getting any more inquiries. But they wouldn't have been able to make that decision to put a business development team in place unless they'd been looking at the numbers of conversion, for example. So you're absolutely right. Knowledge is power, right? Information is knowledge. Knowledge is power. It's when you know what you're doing, when you understand what you're good at. So a buyer, for example, if they could look at your organisation and say, right, they've got a 30% conversion rate there, if we spend this much and put these people in and we could convert it to 50, we've just made the cost of the business, for example. Hence multiples, right? Because the other thing you want to look at is, what will my business be worth when I sell it? Is it a balance sheet value? Is it a multiple of the bottom line? Most people do a multiple of what they call EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization, which is just financial speak for investments into capital, so materials and equipment that you spread the cost out over a few years. But ultimately, buyers look at this EBITDA number and then put a multiple on it. So it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 10. So if you're making...
What affects the model? What affects that number?
I think like
Industries,
anything, right? Supply and demand, right?
Okay.
So if there's a sector that's really buoyant, and there's a lot of money in it right now, or there's a lot of funding behind it,
So
like
right now,
tech.
AI would be...
Yeah, AI would probably
high.
be multiples of 15 to 20.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the more consistent businesses,
Like
maybe...
a building company.
Yeah, probably, what did we say, about 5 to 7? Again, it moves up and down depending on the market out there. But yeah, ultimately, each sector will have its own PE, price earning multiple, which can be applied to your EBITDA number. So you can work backwards. You say, right, I want a business worth this. You can break that down and say, well, if the multiple is 5, I want a business worth 5 million. The multiple would have to be 5 times $1 million. So if I can show an EBITDA of $1 million,
Which is basically profit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Profit before interest and tax and things like that. Then that I've got that. But if the multiple goes up to 10, because not only are you delivering the results at the end of a project, but you're also manufacturing all the supplies, which means you can provide your jobs, but you can provide other jobs as well. That might take that multiple up to 8 or 10.
Well, some other things
As an example.
like things like how important are contracts, how important are like the metrics obviously of like repeat business and stuff. If you can show all of that, then obviously that's what's going to just
repeat business is
increase.
The number one trigger for exponential value. Because again, if anyone's buying your world and it literally they can't predict, patterns is one thing and that will give you some value. So if you can show that you've had a consistent client base, but actually if you can show that you've got these people tied in on paper, well then there's no guessing, is there? There's legal commitments that this future buyer can hold these organisations to. So again, it helps them. So for a future buyer, the more clarity, the more evidence, and the more legal contractual structure that an organisation has with their customers, the bigger, the number's going to be. So, yeah.
What we've already definitely touched on some of them, but what are the most common mistakes you see when you go into business when they say, I want to sell or I want to exit, whatever? What?
Yeah, I think it comes down to not really being able to define the value of your business. It's like, yeah, we've been going for 5 years, we've made £200,000 and we sell beds. I don't know, totally random set of things coming in. Say, okay, well, what makes you different? The thing is, a lot of organisations, when they're running day to day, a lot of businesses, they see what they do as wallpaper. They've done it every day. They don't see it as particularly special. They might not have gone out and looked at competitors and what they're doing and said, how can I be better? So they can't actually define what makes them valuable over a competitor. So that's why what I would say is the best time to have created your sales pitch was the day you started. Right? This is who we are, this is what we do, this is our value proposition, this is our unique selling point, this is our margins, and our intention, this is what it's going to look like in 3 years or 5 years when we sell. This is all of those metrics. But the chances are you'll end up a little bit left or right of that, but you'll be ballpark. But if you just start with almost what they call a lifestyle business, you just go in, you do your best, you respond to the problems rather than preempt them and prepare for them, you're not going to be where you plan to be. So a lot of people think one thing, but they've not actually done any work to make sure that their business is going to be the value that they were hoping for or expecting.
Do you find they're shocked sometimes when you sit down with people and actually work out and they're like, I actually don't have any of these things that you're asking for?
I think the thing is, it's like, it's a bit like a treasure hunt, because it's all in there somewhere, but it's not clear. So if you think you went to a buyer and they look at your books and it's like, well, what am I even looking at here? They don't want to do the work. You have to do the work to show them your world. Whereas if they go through the process with us, you put your portfolio of your business, here's our results, here's our client list that's bought in, here's the client list that's been with us 3 years and counting, this is the future book that I've already got agreed and signed up for. All of a sudden they're like, wow, this is easy to see where it's coming from. So yeah, business owners... And I think that's the really smart thing about entrepreneurs now. Like, we were saying, you can learn so much online. So many people want to share their journey. It's just being open and understanding that we can't do it alone as well. I think a lot of business owners think, I'm going to save on this, I'm going to save on that. I'm not going to hire more people because I can do that and I can do that. But actually, your value is getting to that 5 million number, not, I spoke to somebody at a networking event the other day who said, I do the accounts for my business. And I thought, that's 50K, let's say, a year that you spend, probably takes up 20 hours a week. If you spent that 20 hours a week going out and maybe...
Winning business,
maybe create a franchise model of your business or, upskill and train people to do whatever it is, that is like dead time doing finances. It's not, unless you're going for funding and you need to be able to show a story. So you say, right, for the next 2 weeks, I'm getting into finances. I'm making sure they say what they need to say because we're going to go and pitch for funding. That's fine. But to be the finance person of a business,
stupid.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't understand it. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, in COVID, I made a decision to get back in the business because we didn't know where the business was going at that time. It was real firefighting, and you and standing shoulder to shoulder with your team. You have to do that sometimes, but you don't have to be doing what they do every day. But they need to understand what your value is. So again, that's where the plan comes in, because you can say, right, this is us for the next year. This is the strategy plan we've done. This is his role. This is your role. If we all do this, we're all going skiing next year. This is, we're hiring these people in. So when they're interviewing, they're not just thinking, oh, why am I talking to these people? I don't want to be interviewing. I've got things to do. They're thinking, yeah, because this person's going to come in and help achieve that, and then we're going to get there. Yeah. Well, and everyone is more on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I think business owners fail to realise is the power of the plan and the power of taking it from being wallpaper to making it unique about you. Like we talk about it, branding, right? You're branding your business out to your people, essentially.
What specific steps do you think small business can do right now? Like, what advice would you give them right now to, if they're thinking, okay, cool, I do want to exit maybe in 3 or 4 years, like what can they start doing today?
I would say write the plan for what it's going to look like in 4 years. So write down what the product is, write down what you're selling now, write down how that could grow from now to then, like how else that could expand out. Write down about what skills you bring. Like one of the things I was made to do really early on was a SWOT on myself. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It's fine when you want to SWOT your business because, ultimately you can bring in people, customers, tax issues, legal stuff. But when you're looking at yourself and you realise that sometimes I might be getting in the way of business success because I'm doing the admin instead of out there talking to clients, it's a real eye-opener and a real leveller. So what I would say is get them to really look at what they're good at and how they can spend the majority of their time in that space.
What about so let's say if someone was at a stage of nearing wanting to exit, what's the different options they've got in terms of, like you've said earlier, private equity, obviously just even when you're exiting, there's different buyout ways of doing or retaining some equity or buyout and stuff.
There's so many events that can take place, right? So a business owner could sell to a competitor. So there's somebody out there that thinks, right, you do that bit really well. We're already doing this part of it. We're going to bring them together. Another way is that you can go and get private equity funding, which means, you can stay as a leader and someone driving the organisation, but you have then a board of private equity specialists who want you to drive it in a certain way, but you get lots of money to then take it there.
What's your opinion on that? Because I've heard that it can be
it's hell, isn't it?
Of a nightmare, really.
Yeah, of course it is, because you go from being the master of your own destiny to being the driver of somebody else's bus. However, what is your longer term goal? If you want to get this business to that point, I think that whether you are your own boss or you work for somebody, you're going to have the same amount of problems. It's just what problems you choose align with your value system and what you want to do in life, right? So if you get private equity investment because you know that it's going to take you from where you are to a point that this big guy is going to come and buy you, you agree that that's the plan now for the next 3 years. But you've got to go in with your eyes open. I think that is the biggest thing, because everything looks great from the outside and, I'll get a few million to help me grow from here to here. Well, the requirements of that money, it is, people want their blood for that money, right? So if you're presenting your organisation to be delivering a certain amount of value, make sure it does. If you're saying that this is going to be the growth for the next 3 years, if you put this money in, make sure the people are doing what they're going to do. So what's quite interesting, there are other ways, but just before I go into that, what's quite interesting is that a lot of people say, I want to get my business ready for sale. But by the time it's ready for sale, they don't really have to do anything in it day to day, perhaps turn up for a board meeting, perhaps do some one-to-ones with senior leadership, but maybe they can do it in, a couple of hours a day, and the business is making money, and they're thinking all of a sudden, you know what, I don't want to sell it yet.
So a lot of people change their mind, you find.
Yeah, people do. I mean, again, it depends what stage of life they're at. What's the next plan? What were they going to do with the money they made from that sale, right? Like usually there's another business in them, and that's why they want to move on to the next thing. There's also management buyouts. So you can, you may have a senior leadership team that are really motivated to become owners, and then they can get funding to buy you out. So that's another way of doing it. Again, when you think about who's on your bus on this journey, make sure they're culturally aligned. Make sure that their value system is the same as yours. Are they hardworking? Are they determined? Are they willing to roll their sleeves up? Are they willing to do what it takes to get to the success that you've all defined together? Because you can't carry people on your journey.
Two people I've recently met separate in the last 6 months. They both they're both selling their business, and then the business that has bought them, they've said, look, we're buying you and it's done now, but can you work for us for 2 years? And
Yeah.
they're both similar situations. So now they've sold it, they've got the money, and they're getting paid now to work for the next couple of years.
And how do they feel about that?
So one of them just started it, so it's like, you know what, that's fine, whatever, because he's at a stage of his life where he doesn't want to do anything now, just wants to retire.
What business was it?
That was water treatment.
Water treatment?
Yeah, like, you know, testing water to make sure it's not got
Poison.
Yeah, poison in it. And the other one was, I think it's like an interior design company, and she sold it, worked for 2 years, but now she's finished the 2 years and she was about to go and have a break. They said, oh, look, like, you're so good, can you help us heading up another company or even owning it or part of it? And she's like, oh, I was actually going to kind of just have a break, but this is a good opportunity. Do I want to let it pass? So
yeah, and I think that's the beauty, isn't it? Choices. Like, again, why did we get into this? You know, it was to have choices. It was to be able to be my master of the own destiny phrase. You know, it's knowing that you have options that I think is really important for business owners. You got into this because you want the freedom and the drive to create something, but then if it controls you, you start to lose your fizz. You know, you start to lose what you're good at. So it is really important to be able to check in with yourself and make sure that what you're doing, the structure, the people, it aligns to your best strengths. You know, one thing I will say about exit as well is that a lot of organisations that buy out companies like that will have what's called an earn-out. So, yes, we'll give you 20% upfront, but the other 80% you have to do 2 or 3 years and hit the markers that you say the business is going to hit for you to achieve that.
It's kind of like proving that you can't, and it proves that it can run without you, really, isn't it? So it's like, for the people buying it, I guess it's kind of like a safety clause, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about then on the flip side, from just your experience, what's some advice if you was trying to buy a business? So obviously you wouldn't be on the winning side now. So what kind of businesses could you target, or what kind of structure could you be to be a bit crafty as such to make sure you're getting the best deal your end, like what you just mentioned then, that type of stuff for extra security and stuff?
Yeah, you know, when businesses sell, sometimes they don't have the scale or the size. So they are trying to get a multiple, but one of the natural, you know, stories of multiples is the bigger you are, the bigger the multiple. You know, so you could, for example, look out at other businesses that are in your space, potentially talk about buying them out, getting them on, so you can have organic growth, which is your plan. But part of your growth plan could be acquisition. And I know one company who have actually gone out and bought about 4 or 5 other they're in the telco sector. They've just bought out 4 or 5 different organisations, and they're like a behemoth now, and they've done it all through funding.
Wow.
So the companies they've bought are going concerns in their own right. They're making profit. And so when they take that to the bank can lend on the profit that organisation is going to make. Obviously, your world has to be stable and secure, and you have to prove that you can run a successful organisation, profitable organisation. But then you can then go out and get the funding to buy other organisations and attach them to your business. And before you know it, you've gone from, you know, maybe 1 million to 5 million through acquisition over 2 or 3 years, which, you know, ultimately, if you're then wanting to go and sell, people are looking because you're bigger. So what I would say is for people that are buying, I would look at organisations that have got really clean books. So they call it due diligence, right? So you start with an inquiry, you know, I'm looking to grow, I'm looking to buy, I want to look at a different company, but what is their story? You need clean books, you need a really good leader who's articulate, who can really bring to life what they do, and who, you know, when they're not in the organisation, when they're not in the business, it will carry on as it is now. So you need to see what they've put in place to make sure that the business doesn't fall apart when they leave. So where are the client relationships? Are they all through you? It's like this guy I was telling you about, that every conversation went through him. If he ever wanted to sell, how could he show the value of the business to stand on its own 2 feet without him in it? So the fact that he could say, right, this is where we were, this is where I am, this is the results, this is our processes, this is how this works, this is how that works. So that's what you want to see. When you do due diligence as a buyer, you want clarity of everything. And there is, you know, almost like a book of sales. It's like the strategy. It's the same 10 things that you go through and check, are they robust? Is there a story that's upward trajectory? Is there innovation? Is there thinking? Is there consistency? What are their people? What is the people history like? Do they have a lot of attrition? Do a lot of people leave? I don't want to buy this place and the day I walk through the door, everyone's left, right? So there's lots of different things. Actually, whether you're a buyer or a seller, you're looking at the same factors, but just from a different perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then so in terms of funding, what would you say on the buying perspective? Let's say you've got a business that you're not, a lot of our listeners probably don't have huge businesses. Let's say it's £1 million turnover or lower, been going, let's say 3 years, something like that. What's the best funding options? As in, because there's, whether people are familiar or not, there's a lot of options where you don't need to put down money initially.
I think,
and you pay out of the profits. So let's say that business was making 100k a year, and you agreed 200k buyout. You could potentially pay 50k a year over 4 years.
Yeah.
And then obviously you're still making a profit.
Yeah, I think again it's having clarity of where the funds are coming from, who your buyer is, who your lender is. Like, essentially, are we talking about funding for a business to grow now?
No, sorry. So if people listening to this are at a stage where they're willing to start considering buying businesses,
yes,
because it does seem such an overwhelming. I need to be, miles ahead. I need to have sold already. I need a couple million in the bank and stuff like that. When actually that's not really the case.
Yeah.
So what's the easiest kind of route that someone like that's been going 3 years and
got you,
business under $1 million to buy?
I think the first thing is have good advisors around you. So have good accountants, have accountants that aren't just bean counters but are actually commercial. They'll have their own experiences, so you can go into them and say, right, I'm looking for this kind of business. Accountants deal with so many businesses. They're great networkers for other companies. If you're trying to find a company to buy, go to an accountancy firm that is a specialist in that sector or in your sector. After that, look at London. London is built on building success on borrowed money, right? You look at all the companies out there, there's so much money being lent out for businesses to trial and grow. And I think ultimately, even you look at the British Business Bank, and they are still doing the recovery loan schemes. So for a small business, that is a really accessible, set of funding. Again, if you can show what you're investing in, and that it's a sure thing, that you've got the profits to prove it, then companies will. You've got to have a business plan. I think that's really key and really important, again, is, sort of what I do for a lot of our clients. Essentially, this strategy day is, to an extent, a business plan, but it takes it from the full 3 years to writing down who we are, where we're going, how we're getting there. Here's the numbers to support it. Sounds simple, but it takes time. But if you have that story and you can articulate that really well to whoever is setting up the funding for you, there's so much available. Funding Circle, they lend a lot out to businesses. So I think it's being bold and it's starting to ask questions. I think be inquisitive, find out, rather than think I can't. The whole benefit of a visionary is that they have this inner burning desire to do something, and that's what's going to get them there. So go and look for the funding, go and talk to people, go and network in your sector, look who else is out there, get ideas.
I always get hit with adverts at the moment saying you should look into buying businesses because people are buying properties and they're only making this much money, but you can get businesses that are already running and sometimes you don't even need to put down any money. You can do deals where someone's retiring and you'll just pay them so many different ways to do it, but I guess it's kind of seems like a whole other world in a way. But
well, that's the stock market, isn't it? Investing in businesses. That's what they do. They buy shares in other businesses. So this is probably businesses that aren't listed.
Yeah, no.
So it's just a different market that you're investing in. And I think if you want to, when you're an owner and if you have funds, invest in what interests you, I would say, because then you're more likely to put more into it. Yeah. I would say if you're going to invest in something that you can influence. you know.
We always say that, like this. So I think I can't wait to buy the first business, and I think it will be, well, I hope it will be the most eye-opening thing, which will then set us on to, that's ultimately what I'd want to do long term as well, is just buy in businesses and get very good at it, because we look at businesses all the time, innit, Luke, where we think the business may have been going for years. I think we discussed one as well. I can't remember, it was a high-end kitchen company. They've been going for years, good turnover, good profit margin. They work in nice areas, exactly, no exit plan. They were just retiring. So a chance to probably get at a very good price, as well as probably not put money down. But then you look at it and you think they had no Instagram. I don't even think they had a Facebook page. Their website was rubbish. They did no marketing or advertising. And I thought, oh my God, like I could double that business overnight just by setting up an Instagram, getting a new website, rebranding it slightly, and do a marketing campaign. Put some AI tools in there. Yeah, just doing a marketing campaign. It's like literally so, but you know the structure's already there, operating without you. They had like senior designers and stuff like that. They wasn't running it. But we always see businesses, innit, where we think, oh, we could literally just go run ads and click your fingers and you've doubled the business overnight.
And you see businesses that have no exit plan. Like you said, if you're starting a business, what advice would you give? There are people that have literally run businesses for generations because it's the family business. They've never questioned. And then it takes one generation to say, hold on, there's got to be more to, you know, because, you know, there's this Kerwin Ray guy, I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He talks a lot about, you know, you're not a business owner if you're in there doing the do every day. Like an owner you're a business owner, not a business doer. So he goes, a true business owner isn't in the business every day. And to some extent, that's what I'm trying to help business owners do, is step out and run it rather than be in it doing it, which gives you then the clarity and the headspace to think, where is the next opportunity? All these businesses that you're looking at, you can't be doing that work if you're running the day-to-day processes and stuff. So it really, and you know, the thing is, it's great sitting in a room chatting about it, and it's a very different picture when you get out there and you're dealing with, you know, for a SWOT analysis, you know, strengths and weaknesses is all internal challenges, opportunities and threats are external challenges. Like, what actually are the factors that are pushing and pulling on my business, on my people, on my time? It's only when you understand the challenges and you preempt them and you put solutions in place for them that you have less bumps in the road. So that's essentially what our journey is. It's creating a smoother and therefore a higher percentage of success journey.
Have you helped people buy businesses? Because I guess you know what you're looking for when you're selling it, so then you can reverse it.
Well, we help people to be in a position where they're structured so that they can go and buy businesses. And absolutely, like my mentor is you know, he works in corporate finance as well, so he ran the strategy day with me, because I need someone when I'm doing my strategic. I can't be the person you know, helping the company through it, and the company, you need that perspective and headspace. So what I would advise and support anyone to do, I would do myself. You know, nothing that I've done or nothing I've suggested hasn't been trialed and tested by me, you know, and seeing the true value as a business owner of the peace of mind and the confidence and just the motivation to trust that your project and your process is going to get you where you plan for it to be.
If somebody wants to buy a business or sell a business, where do they go?
So there's a lot of agents, you know, like, first of all, I would say, there's brokers, but I would say ask your accountants, go and network, let people know, like put the message out there. Look, I'm interested in speaking to other people in this sector. This is the size of organisation. This is what I want to do. You know, there's potentially a buyout. There's potentially a merger. You don't have to say, I want to buy you. Some people might be threatened by that. You know, say we want to work together. Yeah. Just start the conversation, get into a room together, grab a coffee, and, you know, start understanding their journey.
You might actually think that maybe one of your competitors, you must think, they're really good, they're doing so well, I want to buy it. And then actually you might get into conversation as you delve deeper into the the actual logistics of it, it might actually not be as good as you think,
Yeah,
right? Or on
you
paper.
lift the bonnet and it's a mess, and you think, well,
Yeah, I've had it so many times where you speak to people. I remember, especially on the clothing, someone that's massive and stuff, I'll end up speaking to them. They're the exact same as you most of the time. Most people in business are the same. Really, you go through the same challenges. It's the same thing. When you start talking, any of the business owners we talk to, normally, I find they're all the same on WhatsApp. Like sometimes they reply quick if you message them at like midnight, or sometimes you might not get a reply for like 3 days. And then when they reply, it's always the same thing. I'm like, mate, sorry, I've got so many, it's so busy, so X, Y, Z. It's like, you just know exactly that they're going through the same thing as you, where they've got 100 WhatsApps at all times, and it's just manic, isn't it? It's everyone's pretty similar, to be honest, is what I find.
Yeah, the challenges of business, whether you're 1 million or 100 million or whatever, to some extent, you've got people challenges, you've got strategic challenges, you've got external forces that are impacting your world, and then you're going to have supply of products or whatever your world is. Like, there's always going to be a set of challenges that are getting in the way of you getting to the outcome you want. That's why, I always say to myself, to people I'm in business or I work with, if it was easy, everyone would do it and there wouldn't be any value in it. So when it's hard, it means that you're actually doing something that so many others wouldn't have the confidence or guts to do, So be proud of yourself. Remind yourself you're not taking the easy road. You're actually listening to your inner voice and thinking, this is what I want to do. And that brings a lot of challenges. But when you've got good mentors, I would say, like you said about what advice would you give, get good advisors, get good mentors, and you're not alone. I think being a business owner is one of the loneliest things. If you don't have a network and a group of like-minded people, Joe and I met through Founders, and the value of that was people in the room, or who get each other, and who actually give each other a lot of support and advice.
What's your plan? What's your next few years look like?
So I think...
And second, also, would you ever sell your business?
So, these are all questions that I have to face and consider and have answers to, because if I'm not thinking about these things, I'm not doing justice by my business and my journey. I think that coming out of COVID was the biggest challenge and the biggest win, because I saw my business a bit like a car on the motorway. I knew it needed to lap, pit stop and lift the bonnet like we were talking about, and look at what's working and what needs refining to future-proof. But it was always going so fast that I just didn't have the time. So in the way that what the pandemic did was it made me stop, it made me look, and it made me really refine who we are, what we do, how we add value, where our value proposition is. And ultimately, I think that to give a business the greatest success, you have to give it the next step. So for me, I definitely want to continue to facilitate more businesses to be successful through their leaders, through their people. But ultimately, I see my role as becoming more and more in facilitating my team to deliver the team on the ground, the training and the advisory, but me to coach business leaders. Because it's not just you in a bubble. You as a business leader, you've got your personal journey, you've got your family journey, you've got your business journey. And I remember the first thing I was taught by my mentor was that it was at Cranfield. It's a MBA business school, and the lecturer drew a triangle on the board and said, "What is this? This is the key to the greatest success. The greatest business leaders and the most successful ones have mastered this." And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it's multiples and P ratios and financial this and that." And he went, "No, it's when you get the balance in your life of a third on you, a third on your family, and a third on your business." And so I think that for my business's future and success, I've got to work on that triangle for me and help my clients work on that balance for them, because that's when they'll be at their most primed and successful. So would I sell? I feel like I find it hard to let go. So I think I'd always want to have a percentage, but I would love to see some of my team that have grown come in and buy me out, or at least buy a bigger share, because I think it needs the next generation of of interest and ideas and expertise as well. Everyone has a different perspective. So
I think that's quite a nice way of doing things. I'd like to see your team members that have grown with you to buy out some equity. So nicer than go into a private equity company or some big company. Or
well, the story continues, and I did that 10 years ago. I actually bought out my boss at that time because I knew I could do it better by then, you know. So I think that having experiences of different approaches to business is really important, and surrounding yourself with experts, being humble, but also being really focused, I think, is the success. And then it's just an adventure after that, isn't it?
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you very much.
That's been great having a good
conversation.
conversation.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Luke.